All right, season 5, episode 4. This one is called Amen. uh, so let's jump in. Overview for this week. So we've got two main things: credit and platform. On the credit side, so we're getting ready for that final stage of deployment on mainnet for next week. Typically, what I describe for this process, it's that last 5% of software that takes an excruciating long amount of time because you find all the things that you don't know about. So we're really just in that stage, ironing out the little things that are preventing us from launching. So very, very, very close. And that will be exciting once we get through that last 5%. A lot of the success for the credit alpha is going to be around stability and technical feasibility, given the risk present. So really, we're not trying to gain a ton of traction or anything. We just want to make sure that it works, and we're confident and comfortable with a lot of the systems we've built because there is a lot of code powering the credit machine. And last of all, we had a mini team retreat last week, and through that we fleshed out a lot of how we think the borrower roadmap will progress with the kinds of features we'd love to build in the coming weeks and months. But all of that will be done once we know we've achieved a base amount of stability. Key milestones are going to be getting Alpha live on mainnet, and then of course the first dollar of revenue that comes in for credit. So that's kind of summarizing everything on the credit side. In terms of platform, we're focusing on our first very high value opportunity. We're early stages in it, but working really hard to make sure we keep it on track. Second is focusing on serving existing customers is a lot of where our energy is going towards. We've got strong demand for wanting to use our API and the associated documentation with it. Which is really cool because it means that a lot of the scores that you see on the website will actually starting to be used in other places throughout the ecosystem. And the key milestone from platform a few weeks ago we had it is the first integration or use, but we've now progressed past that to the point where we can think about how do we get that first dollar. So very exciting times, because when we look back to where we were to where we are now, there's a huge difference. So more energy and more sustained traction. Sure, we'll see some really cool things. In terms of shoutouts and challenges, just massive shout out to Kyle and Alex for pushing super hard on the backend side of things. There are so many changes going on and the complexity is insanely high. So really big thank you to all the amazing work being done there. It's some of the most important work, especially laying those foundations or upgrading those foundations. And a lot of what we're experiencing right now is really just when you have real customers using products, there's a certain level of quality and reliability that you now need to now adhere to. So seeing the systems adapt to that is really critical and important. So that's that. And challenges, just keeping up with the demand. We can't really build fast enough relative to what customers want on the platform side. And once we launch credit, there's going to be more things that come out from there. So good challenges to have, but still challenges we need to work towards and solve. So that's it on my end. I will pass it over to Gabe on the engineering side.
All right, GM everyone. So last week, we reorganized our project management process, allowing us to scope work in different projects so that we can track a start and a finish, and owners of the project, which basically will boost our efficiency. Very excited about the new workflow. We have made more progress on Borrow Alpha on the dApp, so fixing bugs, like more QAing, and it's still in progress as we are coming towards the release of Borrow Alpha this week. We also made some changes on the smart contracts regarding the way we handle liquidations to make it a bit more clean, more elegant, and those were completed last week as well, and they were redeployed on Mumbai for testing. We are currently testing them right now. This week, as I said, we plan to release Barrow Alpha if everything goes. Everything should go according to the plan. So let's keep it this way. Also, we are currently actively working on constructing the new API docs and new public APIs. This will make the endpoints cleaner and more efficient, and just easier to use for both partners and just indie external developers, anyone who wants to integrate with us, which is very exciting. And finally, to do these things, we have to do a lot of refactoring, which is why coming back to the point of Kerman said just earlier on how the complexity is very high as we change. The refactoring basically changes a lot of code on the back end, and the challenge is capacity is very tight. So we're looking to hire to just expand a bit our resources on that side, but more details on that are coming soon. So these are the updates for this week. I'll pass it on to KL for the data side.
GM to everyone. So to echo some of Gabe's comments just then, so one of the really big things that we've done is reorganized our project management process. So this was a really big cross-engineering squad project where we thought, how do we actually start to bring our engineers together? How do we make sure that we scope projects in nicely? Because we found that there was a lot of friction in that process. So that's one of those soft things that as engineers frustrates us, that we're not actually committing code, but super important in scaling out the team. So that was one of the big things we did last week. A lot of this work done generally by the engineers, like of the kind of strategic layer of engineers, was discussions and planning and drafting and architectures and scaling. So that was a lot of the work last week. But other work that was done was for us, continued work on our Cassio framework, very similar to echoing Kerman's comments. Last 5% takes forever. It's all there. It's just a couple scores that haven't been ported over, which is just hanging on. For this week, it's basically converting some of those strategic discussions we had over the last week with Gabe, Kyle, myself, Stuart, and actually turning them into actionable items and tickets for the engineers to work on. For example, we've got ideas of how to scale up our website performance, which moves a lot of compute into the data end. It's just stuff like scoping that in properly. Stuart's going to kickstart risk, so he's now steering that ship entirely. I've had to learn to let go and accept that I don't have all the infinite amount of time in my day. So Stuart is now running that, and he's going to be kicking that off. And other kind of work is continued work on Cassio, just trying to get that over the line and assisting Sparta with their sales conversations. There's a few analyses that need to be done and some changes and fixes that need to be done to support their conversations. Big shout out. So the first one I'll shout out is Stuart. So Stuart has really grown in the last month or so, and he's really starting to take a lot of ownership over a part of Titan. So big shout out to him for taking the reign with risk modeling and just owning that. And then for the web guys, I never really shout out the web guys. I wanted to shout them out this week. They all work super hard, and their work, they get softer specs than I get. Some of my specs are much clearer, and they always have to change things. They always have to pivot. You know, there's always new things that Liam, Kerman, or Hugh need in -1 day's time. So they work super hard, and I really, I want to shout them out for that. Challenges. So the big challenge is a recurring challenge is that juggling, delegation, prioritization, doing things simultaneously, letting go of stuff. That's a very, very big thing, a big theme going on at the moment. That's really it for me. So over to Liam in Sparta.
Thank you, Kale. And as a great man once said, GM. So last week, we had the absolute privilege of having some of the engineers in person. Those engineers being Kyle, Gabe, and Stuart. So we had a love-in, for lack of a better word, together, and just sort of really formed a better understanding of how we can sort of, I guess, work more closely together, just unpicking those nuances that you get when you're person with people. So it was really productive, and I think overall was just everyone's the level of productivity was just incredible. So that took up a lot of the bandwidth last week, That said, though, we met with 2 promising partnership opportunities. So this is distinct from customers. This is, I kind of look at partners more as like a channel into customers. So we had 2 really interesting conversations there that challenged us to think about how we want to approach those conversations in the future and what strategy we want to have on that channel side. And then a lot of the effort is just these days is going into writing proposals and scope of work. So not a bad problem to have at all, a very good problem to have, because it means that we're getting a lot of inbound demand. So this week, the focus really is on our existing customers. They take top priority for us, and we are just doing project planning with them at the moment, and just really exciting. So there's been 4 inbound opportunities that have come in. So they came in as leads. They've all turned into opportunities, which is awesome. So, every single one of them is interested in getting value from our platform. And then there was also a community member that came through, and it was very enthusiastic about how our platform could serve their community. So that's just on me to structure a proposal so I can have a high value conversation with their community lead who's already interested, and we're having that. Then there's also driving the Discord bots installed. Sort of Kermit and I are cracking the whips on ourselves to get the Discord bot installed in some more servers this week. So that's another ongoing piece of work this week. Shout outs. So I wanted to shout out Alex and Kyle. I need to shout you out as well, but you already know that I love you a lot, and I need to give Alex more love because what he's doing behind the scenes is fantastic. And like, he needs to get more credit. Like, the amount of value that guy's creating is insane. So Alex, well done. Really appreciate what you're doing. I know that we're sometimes worlds apart, but just want to make sure that you know that what you're doing is really valuable with the conversations we're all having. So thank you. And so the challenges is, as we go into this sort of next phase, what we're learning is that we've all got really different interests and skills, should I say. Like, the interests form the skills, and we're starting to really learn how we can leverage each other's skills and how we all work with one another in different ways as opportunities come in is this great challenge that we're all working through. And I'm just seeing such a phenomenal change in what we can do. And then the other challenge that I'm starting to think about in a more creative space is capturing developer stories. So something really interesting that's happening is, I'm looking at our tickets channel at the moment, and for the last few weeks, we've been having probably 2 or 3 random developers opening up tickets in our Discord saying, how do I use the platform? And just having questions and having little questions like this. So I want to make sure that a problem I'm wanting to solve is figuring out, how do I get more of these developers who are just permissionlessly coming and getting value from our platform? How can I figure out how to engage them, understand what they're working on, share their stories, and amplify their successes? So that's just a sort of creative challenge I'm starting to think about as we become more developer and customer platform. That is everything from me this week, and I will hand the reins over to Hugh to talk about product and growth.
Thanks, Liam. Cool. So last week was, as mentioned by the rest of the team, a heavy week of workshops. Just wanted to quickly whip through the topics that we might be helpful, just to paint some context around it. The first one we discussed was the question of how do we make the sales team or independent from the data team and thinking through platform sales. There is a lot of existing kind of process handover between these 2 teams, and there's a really interesting opportunity to empower that team, the sales team, to really drive end to end. That was one workshop that we had. Following on from that is a discussion on what developer documentation might look like for the platform. This is quite interesting because, as Liam mentioned, we're getting more interest from developers, indie developers, as well as large protocols and DAOs who are coming to us and trying to figure out how to use our technology. And what we're trying to do is we want to create the like gold standard developer experience for platform so that this thing can start selling itself. Beyond that, we also talked about the what we're calling the credit product roadmap. So not the borrow roadmap, but it's the same thing. We're just going for a I'm going to see if it catches. But yeah, so we sat down and actually discussed, what are the assets, what are the features that we want to start building post beta. The impact of this will be like a roadmap, what the product team, what the engineers, and what the risk team kind of work on over the next few months and possibly years, because there's a lot there. It's pretty exciting. We also spent a bit of time articulating how we describe the credit product. Well, so like what is the program? Like why would you be interested in using ARCx over, say, like a maker borrow, and then how do you actually build your credit? So what we're trying to solve here is just the explainability of saying we do offer one-to-one loan, but how do you get there is like a separate question. And we're trying to build like a really compelling reason why you start the journey of credit score. And ultimately, like the value prop is, a better experience, a safer borrowing experience, and greater capital efficiency. And all of these things, it's all included in the industry. So that workshop was very good at just like kind of aligning ourselves on what that is. And then we also spent some time doing synchronous QA, the alpha credit product. So that was really good. In addition to those workshops, also pumped out a bunch of specs and design product, and then community, just kind of ongoing. This week, a lot of those workshops are now getting crystallized into work streams. So, finalized beta design spec. So this will include our supply page, our vault selector, and an update to the borrow UI to include like a vault and pool analytics. So that's going to be really good. Also spent some time doing, we'll spend some time doing the QA again for the alpha, just in the release cadence that got set up. And then also working with other teams, including risk, on building out that roadmap and then defining the research plan for how we tackle new assets and new features from a risk perspective and customer design feasibility perspective. On the marketing side, we've got a graphic designer that we're starting to work producing marketing assets for our Twitter and Substack posts. So I'm going to be working closely with him over the next week to produce some assets here. We're looking to get back to where we were in a similar where we were last year, where we had some really, like 3D animated graphics, and we're hoping that as we start getting the announcements of these partnerships and these product launches coming up, it's going to be really helpful to make us look quite professional, which we are, but it's going to really boost I think the impact of all of those comms. And then finally on community, ongoing moderation as mentioned, but also going to be working with Joel on the next phase of community. Watch this space. And yeah, live week. Shout outs from me this week is just the whole Sydney crew, larger Sydney crew. I think it was really fun, and I got an enormous amount of from putting faces to names and getting learning a lot more different people's backgrounds and what people do and kind of stuff. I think it's just really helpful. I'm personally extremely bullish on the concept of co-locating people, and I think that having this connection has been really helpful for us internally. And I also just want to shout out for the people who couldn't make it, everyone who kept the lights running, and so I think that's it's something we're going to try and fix when we do our big whole team retreat. And that's it from me.
Cool. Thanks for that, Hugh. Do we have any questions this week? Across the board.
I realized something, that I think that the people who are not on core team Kenji are actually muted. And I don't know if you guys have questions, but I'm going to fix that muting issue. But if you have questions on the community server, and then we can answer if there's any.
Well, yeah, it looks like it's it for this week. But thank you all for joining, and excited for see you all next week again. So goodbye and take care.